All right, hi everyone. Welcome to problem set 2, part 4. We will be making use of data file number 10. And starting with this, we're going to be looking at Visual Basic for Applications, VBA. And this is going to let us do some light coding to make macro-enabled buttons that do stuff we want to do a lot quicker. In particular, this week, we're going to be looking at making a button to extract addresses. We're going to have unformatted addresses. If you can see here, this is the street address, what city, what state, what zip code. And we're going to be building a button that's going to extract this for us. And this is extremely handy for when you have large sets of data. We have a set of 10 addresses here. And we're going to be making a loop that goes from rows 2 through 11 and extracts these for us. But, if you have thousands, 20,000 rows because you copy in a bunch of addresses that are in this unformatted type and you want to separate them out, then making something like this would be an extremely handy way of doing that. So this is what it's going to look like. I'm going to hit the extract addresses button, and you can see it's going to split everything apart, remove all of these commas, all these spaces, and just put them in the boxes we want to go. So that's what we're going to be working with. And I want to start by, I put an announcement out about this by letting you know that the file type for this needs to be saved as an XLSM file instead of the XLSX file. And that's because it needs to be a macro-enabled file. So I'm sure most of you have already started with parts 1, 2, and 3. Go ahead, as you're working on this file set, go ahead and save it now. Resave what you've been working at as a XLSM file before you get started, and then start working off of that, because the macro will not function in an XLSX file. So for this, we're also going to need the developer tab open. So you're going to go to your file and then to let's see here, options. And from options, we want to customize our ribbon because we're going to add the developer tab here. So we want to go to the customize ribbon tab. And then on the right side here, developer is likely not checked. Go ahead and check that and then hit the OK button. So that's under customize ribbon. And then on the right side, we're adding developer. Okay. Now we have developer and we have the ability to insert a command button, which is exactly what we want to do. So go ahead and insert a command button, and you can click where you want it to insert, and you can see you can't quite read it all. So you're going to need to make it a little bit larger. And then we also are going to want to change, let's see here, we want to right click and go to format control. No, I'm sorry, properties. We want to right click and go to properties. And when you do that, sometimes it doesn't open up in the right spot. It opens up on another screen because what I've got going on is I've got two screens, 2 monitors with Excel files. So for some reason, it opened up on the other monitor, which is why I could not see it at first. And in the properties, there's a bunch of stuff you do not want to mess with until you know more about it. But one here is called caption, and that's just basically what is the title of that button. And so we want that button, as you saw in number 10, to say extract addresses. So go ahead and just double click here on where it says command button 1, and you can delete that out and just write extract addresses, and then you can close it. It'll automatically save. All right. So this does nothing when you click on it because we're in design mode. Design mode is turned on automatically whenever we insert a command prompt. If I were to click this off, then this would try to run something. Well, we haven't given it anything to run. So go ahead and let's put design mode back on. Great. All right. So for this, we want to start. I want you to go ahead and click into this text box and copy this. We're going to want that in a little bit. So go ahead and copy it now. And then double click on your why can't I say that word? Extract addresses button. Double click on that. As long as you're in design mode, it'll open up the command prompt, which Let's see here. I need to bring over because again, it opened up on my other screen. And this is what it'll end up looking like, but we're working on this book and not the previous book. So this is how it starts. This is what we've got going on. And we're gonna want to write at the very top of it to start is option explicit. And that's just going to make sure that we don't return any values that aren't found in our worksheet, that all of the things we type are actual commands. So we've got that going on. Great. Next thing we want to do is just write a note to ourselves. So we're going to put an apostrophe here. And this is where we are going to paste that address I told you to paste. And that's going to come important because the next thing we're going to do is going to write another note to ourselves. And I want you to write out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Why on earth did we do that? Well, that's because we're going to be writing some commands that refer to the position of certain characters. This is character position. And this reference is going to help us. This isn't going to do anything for our actual button, but it's going to help us as we're writing to keep track of what position our commands are in. You can see that the 27th is position character 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's because right underneath each one of those characters is a number we've written for ourselves. This comma, for example, is in the 9th character space. And I can see that because I wrote a 9 under it. This blank spot where the space is, that's the 10th character spot. We have to just know that when I get to the 0 place again, it's 10, 11, 12, 13. Like this is 17 because I've started over at 7. So this comma is in the 17th spot. This Y in New York is now in the 20th spot, and so on. So that's just a note for ourselves. The next thing we want to do is we're going to write additional kind of note to ourselves. And this is going to DIM stands for dimension, but what it kind of the backronym for that could be designate it means. This is just saying what it means, right? So DIM, we're going to write first comma POS, first comma position, right? And that's just something we're going to want to know for ourselves. That's fine. Yes, that won't quite work because there's more information we need to know. But now we can start actually doing some coding. So the first thing we want to do is write what is the first comma position. We hadn't written that yet, so that's why it popped up an error. That's fine. First comma position, that's going to equal, and the instruction we're going to give is that, so we're going to write INSTR and open our parentheses. This is going to give us a start position for cells and where this all is. And so the what we need to start with is to look into, if you look at columns A, B, C, D, and E, you're going to see that we have 5 columns. So a lot of the stuff we're going to write is in reference to what position it's in. So this is the first, second, third, fourth, fifth positions. And we want to know that this is going to be the first thing that we're looking for. So we're going to write a 1. And then where are we going to look for it? So we're going to look in cells. What cells are we going to look for? Open in parentheses. This is going to be the row and column index. So the very first thing we're going to have is row 2, and column is going to be the first column. So our first instruction, we're going to write cells, open parentheses, row index is going to be row 2, comma 1, and that's going to look for, again, the very first thing, very first starting place we're going to look for is in the second row, 27th Avenue, Queens, and then column number 1. We can close our parentheses, and then what are we looking for there? So we're going to write a comma. The next thing we're looking for is to open our parentheses, comma, close our parentheses. So this is telling us in row 2, column 1, look for a comma. All right, that's what we're looking for there. And then we're just going to write a 1 because that's just how we do. that command. I'm going to clue you in on something. Visual Basic for applications is a little bit beyond my actual expertise. I'm not an information systems guy. I'm not a computer science guy. I'm a analytics guy with a lot of experience in Excel. But I'm kind of going to be teaching as best I can on this. I'll get you through the assignment. You might see some quick edits as I mess up a command and decide to edit the video and figure out what I've done wrong and jump to it, or I might just keep those mistakes in there. So that's me being entirely candid with you. And so we've got this first comma position. We now want to know where is our what do we not have here? After that, we have comma 1. Oh, I hit enter in the wrong place. All right. Next thing we want to know is what is our second comma position. So we're going to go to here and we're going to write second comma position because there's 2 commas in this, and that position is going to be equal to, we're going to write a new instruction, and that's going to be it's going to be equal to where the first comma position is plus 1. So the starting position for where to look for in our first comma position is where in our second comma position is where our first comma position is. So once it's found our first comma position, so it's going to find here, and then in the very next cell, that's where it's going to start looking, and then end at a next position. And we are going to be looking at first comma position plus 1 is where to start looking, and then from that point on, it's going to look for a comma. So what cells it's going to look for? It's going to still look for it in row 2, column 1. So row 2, comma 1, and then look for parentheses, comma, close parentheses, comma 1. Look for a comma. So starting after the first comma that it found, and it knows what the first comma is based on that first command we've written. Start looking after that. So the very next cell after it found a comma, start looking for the next comma it finds. That's the next comma position. All right, great. So from here, one second. From here, we want to know, is this working? Is it finding the second comma position or not, right? And this is something we could have done after the first comma position as well. We could have tested this, but what we're going to do is we're going to say cells 2, which is row 2, column 2. So this cell right here, what we want that to be equal to is equal to second comma position. And this is just a test. We're going to be deleting this line, but let's go ahead and do our first actual attempt at running a code. So we want this cell to be equal to whatever second comma position is. Now, if you look at the cells we've done, or the writing notes we've done for ourselves up here, we should know that the first comma position, if I run this, is going to be equal to position 9 because the comma was matched up with position 9, and our second comma position on this very first command should say 17. That's because the second comma in row 2, column 1. The second comma in this is found in position 17, and we know that because we made this little note for ourselves. So if this worked correctly, and we can click off of this, let's go ahead and close our design mode, turn that off, and click this button. And let's see, what do we get here? A little error. I'm going to pause this for a second while I figure this out. All right, I had to pause the video for a second and I figured out what was wrong. I had two worksheets with the same button name, and it was not liking that. So I had to move what we were working on this video to a new worksheet altogether so that it'll start working. So again, to recap what we were just talking about, although for you no time has passed, I want cell 2 right here to tell me what position the second comma from this one is in. And again, it should tell us that it's in the 17th position because the second comma matches up with this 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That 0 represents 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So I should see 17. But when I click off of this and I click design mode off, I hit extract addresses, and 17 is what's displayed because the second comma is in the 17th position. So I feel good that it's working so far. And let's go ahead and continue with what we were doing. So the next thing, now that we know that's working, and again, I could have done the same thing. I could have said cell 2 to after I wrote first comma position command, I could have wrote first comma position, click off of this, and I should get 9. And the reason I got 9 there was because the first comma is in cell 2-1, which is 2A, in the 9th position. That comma is right here on position number 9. All right, so again, that's just a test that it's finding the position of these cells correctly. And then the second comma position looks after the first comma. From that point on, the second comma position is equal to where it finds a comma after the first comma. Let's go ahead and go on. The next thing we're going to do is we want to get our address going. So the address field is going to be equal to, we want to write left. It's going to be the leftmost part of cell 2-1. So we're going to write cells, open parentheses 2, comma 1. And that's saying, again, row 2, the first column. That's going to be equal. It's going to, everything on the address, we want everything on the address to be everything from the very first column position to the left of that, right? So that's going to be everything from the first comma position minus 1. So everything 1 less than that first one. Let me hear if your first comma position, I forgot a comma. Here we go. Everything from the first column position, which is a position number 9, minus 1. So from 8 to the left, we want that to be our address. So it's going to say that it's going to look at this comma position 9 and everything to the left of that. So from position 1 to the left of that and left, that's going to be our address. So it knows that's our address. And then the city length is going to be everything between our 2 commas. And so for the city length, we have to do something a little bit different. We want to look at, let's go ahead and write the city length. We want that to be equal to the second comma position minus the first comma position, and then minus 2. So why are we doing minus 2? Oh, we don't need a parentheses there. Minus 2. Why are we doing minus 2? Well, that's because we have some spaces in there, or we have a space, and we have these comma positions. And the way that math works out is that the length of that city is going to be equal to where it finds the second comma, which is 17 right now. And the first comma is found at 9, right? Okay, so 17 minus 9 is what, 8, right? Yeah. And then Queens is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 letters long. So 8. So 17 minus 9 is 8. 8 minus 2 is 6. And so you can see that matches up. And that's just because of the way the math works out with where the comma is, plus subtracting this space. We need the length of the city to be equal to that. So second comma position minus first comma position minus 2 characters. That's the length of the city. And the location of that city is going to be the middle values of cells, and not the left side, not the right side, but in the middle of cells, row 2, comma 1. And that's going to be where the first comma position is, plus 2, so that's where it's going to start, and then equal to the length of it's going to be equal to what we called city length, and then close our parentheses. So the first comma position is in 9. 9 plus 2 is 11. You can see that's where it starts. That's where the word Queens starts here on 9 plus 2 equals 11, character number 11. So that works great there. We want state to be equal to the middle cells. Again, it's going to be looking at 2, 1, and where the second comma position is, plus 2. And we always want the state length to be 2 characters long. We want it to be an abbreviation, so NY and J for these ones. We want the zip to be equal to the right size, everything to the right, not in the middle of any cells, but everything to the right of, again, we're referencing cell 2-1 for now. We're going to be changing this and updating this to an index later, but for now we want it to all reference this one address. And that's going to be everything to the right. So the rightmost cells, and how many cells or how many characters? Sorry, the rightmost characters, and we want the right 5 characters. So the very final 5 characters of this. So the right, you can see the right ones, the left ones are a lot easier to manage, but we want everything, the 5 characters to the right, because we always know that's going to be 5 characters. We couldn't do like 8 characters to the left, because it's not always going to be an 8-character format for the street address, but zip code will always be a 5-character format, so we can just grab the 5 rightmost cells. So that's going to be our zip. And what did we do wrong? What did we miss here? Oh, close our parentheses. All right, that's where it's going to find the zip. And then now we need to do a little bit more writing for ourselves. So what we're going to say is that now that we've defined what address is, defined what city, state, and zip code are, we want to know where is it going to put those things. So row 2, column 2, we've been working on row 2, column 1 this whole time, but row 2, column 2 is going to be the address. So that's going to equal address, and address is equal to what we've defined it as here. Cells 2, 3, so row 2, the 3rd column, city, we want equal to city. Cells 2, 4, so what we've defined as state, we want to be equal to state. And finally, cells 2, 5, we want to be equal to the zip. All right, so far so good. Let's see, a lot of empty spaces here. Let's see if this works so far. So let's go ahead and turn on design mode and hit, I'm going to go delete that out just so you can see that it should fill in everything, extract addresses, and no, what did we do wrong here? Address equals, found something wrong with this. We don't want that capitalized, and we don't want that capitalized. It keeps capitalizing it for some reason. So I must have something in there that's causing that to happen. Let's see, let's go ahead and pause the recording for a second while I figure this out. And we're back. Looks like I need to, on this line here, I need to also define all these other things. So it wasn't the capital letter. So address is going to be included in here, city length, state, and zip. All right, let's give that a try. And extract addresses didn't work, of course. So let's see, back to where we're at. VIM, first column, address. So far so good. Everything looks correct. Design mode. There we go. Okay. Design mode off and on again is what I had to do. All right. So got it in there. Extract addresses, and we've got 27th Avenue is the street address, Queens, New York, and the zip code. Perfect. All right, now what we want to do, we've got everything in our command working properly, but we only have it working for row 2, because everything's been a reference to row 2 and the very first cell. But we want this to loop and check everything in our worksheet. And for this, we're going to go ahead and make a loop between rows 2 and 11, because we're not going to be adding more addresses in. But we could set this up to where it went 2 through, the bottom of our page. If we have Control Shift down, you can see it goes down to 104, or goes to 1.48 million, or 1.04, 1,048,576. But we don't need it to do that, right? We're just going to have it go through rows 2 through 11. So let's go back to design mode, double click on this, and let's write ourselves an index. So this is our things we're looking for, but we're now going to write an index. So now we want the dim index as an integer, because we're looking at the number of characters and as an integer, and then we're going to write for index, we want that index to be 2 to 11, so rows 2 through 11. And then now that we have this as our main command, we want to probably, just to make it easier to view, have all these tabbed over one, just so that we know that this is all a index, or under this one index, all of these subcommands. And then our cells, we now, instead of row 2, we want the rows to be our index, and our index is rows 2 through 11. Again, we could have that rows 2 through 20, but we want it to loop and basically look at row 2, do all this, then row 3, then do all this, then row 4, then do all this, etc. So everywhere where we have cells, open parentheses 2, we're going to write index instead. I'm going to copy the word index and then go to 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. All right. So all of that, we've got that good. We've replaced row 2 with the index, and the index is rows 2 through 11. And then last thing we write is next, so that it goes to the next row, next row, next row. And I think we're good. If we did this correctly at this point, then we should have it, let's see, I think space there, double space there. I think this should run rows 2 through 11 and find the addresses for everything. So I'm going to click off of this. I'm going to delete this out, and then I'm going to turn design mode off, and I'm going to cross my fingers, hit it. There we go. All right, so it worked. From this point, though, you're going to look at formatting. So, make sure everything's visible. If you highlight all of these and double click, it will automatically adjust to these addresses. However, that doesn't quite future-proof us, because you might have a longer city name. You might have a longer street address. So I would at least make those a little bit wider. And then I personally think that just this part of it needs to be formatted as a table and not the, unformatted addresses. That way, if we're looking at this as a business, we can look to this level here. And then you probably want to, when you're looking at a larger table, if you band each of the rows, I think it looks a little bit better as well. So I'm just going to do that. But there you go. There's your first taste of Visual Basic for applications. We got through it. A few pausing of recordings later. But let me know if you have any questions. I'll answer them as best I can. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you in part 5.